Okay, so picture this. A creature steps into your living room,
Mm.
perfectly poised, coat shimmering like polished ebony, eyes like molten gold.
Hmm.
It moves with a distinctive sway. It looks, well, it looks for all the world like a tiny black panther has decided you're its new favorite person.
Wow.
That striking image, that's the Bombay Cat. And that's exactly what we're diving into today.
It's a truly captivating visual, yeah. And it's really the defining thing that sets this breed apart, you know?
Right.
We're going to take the stack of material you shared, all the breed information, expert insights, and really unpack what makes the Bombay unique.
Yeah, our mission is pretty simple.
Yeah.
Get past just the look, pull out the most important facts, find any, surprising nuggets, and give you the practical stuff you need to understand this fascinating cat.
Exactly.
This is basically your shortcut to really knowing the Bombay.
Absolutely. Well, look at that signature appearance for sure.
Mm.
Explore their incredibly social personality, talk about what they need to be happy at home, cover the basics of their care, potential health things to watch for, and even, yeah, touch on their history and some fun facts from the material.
Okay, let's start with that look because, wow, is no accident, is it?
Not at all.
We found out this breed was deliberately created to look like the Indian Black Panther, a mini version, obviously.
A domestic mini panther.
And importantly, no wild blood involved here.
That intention is so key to their story. Their lineage comes specifically from crossing Burmese cats with black American shorthairs. The breeders had a very clear picture in mind.
And the coat is just central to that picture. It's described as short, incredibly sleek, solid black, root to tip.
Mm-hmm.
But it's that sheen that gets mentioned again and again. It's so shiny. Some breeders compare it to patent leather.
Yeah, that's the classic description. And build-wise, they definitely take a lot from the Burmese side. They're well-muscled.
Okay.
But the material points out they tend to be maybe a bit less stocky than a Burmese, maybe a little longer in the body.
Ah, interesting.
You still see that classic round head, though, with short, round-tipped ears.
The eyes against the black.
Yeah.
Just stunning. Medium-sized, round, and specifically gold to copper. They really pop.
They absolutely do. And get this, even their movement is part of the look.
Right. That's
Some material mentions they have a specific, almost swaying gait when they walk. It just adds to that whole miniature panther vibe.
It really does. And here's a little detail about their appearance that kind of jumped out at me. It's not just the fur that's black.
Oh, yeah.
Everything is inky black whiskers, nose, even their eyelashes, the pads of their feet. All black.
Total commitment to the color scheme.
Exactly. But, okay, here's the truly surprising bit we found. Some Bombay kittens are actually born pure white.
No way, really?
Yeah. And they only darken to black over their first year. Isn't that wild?
That is completely unexpected. Wow. Okay, so moving from that striking look, let's talk personality. What drives them?
Right.
The material makes it super clear that their temperament is heavily, heavily influenced by their Burmese side.
And what does that mean in practice? They're described as highly social, pretty intelligent, and very, very people-driven.
Yeah, people-driven is a good way to put it. They form these really strong bonds and genuinely prefer being, well, wherever their humans are.
They want to be in the mix.
Totally. But there's an interesting little nuance here we picked up on. While the breed tends towards being social, individual personalities can actually vary quite a bit.
Oh, how so?
Well, one detail mentioned is that their specific mix of Burmese and short hair, and apparently the father's genetics in particular, can really influence how outgoing an individual cat ends up being.
Huh. That's fascinating. So you generally get a social cat, but the level of extroversion might differ.
Exactly. The material generally uses words like social, affectionate, brave, playful, and calls them good family cats overall.
Okay. And good with kids.
Typically, yeah, because they're playful but also have the sort of restrained nature, apparently. They don't usually get too rough.
Makes sense.
And they also tend to do well with other cats in the house, once everyone figures out who's boss.
Right, the pecking order.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
That connection to people, though, sounds pretty intense. We heard they'll literally follow you around, watch what you're doing.
Oh, yeah.
They just want to be involved. They're not going to be happy chilling in another room alone.
No, definitely not. And activity-wise, they're strong, they're agile climbers, jumpers.
Little athletes.
Kind of.
Yeah.
Very playful, especially when they're young. And while they might mellow out a bit with age, many Bombays still enjoy interactive games, like even fetch.
Fetch. Okay, that's cool. Now, this high social drive, It leads directly into something really important about their living needs, doesn't it?
Absolutely critical.
Because they crave that companionship so much, the material really stresses they don't do well being left alone for long periods, like more than a couple of hours.
Yeah, it can genuinely cause them stress, especially if they're the only cat in the house. It's maybe less of an issue if they have another cat buddy.
That's a huge point for anyone considering this breed. You need to be around.
Definitely. And knowing they are strong climbers and jumpers, well, providing vertical space is a really good idea.
Like a cat tree.
Exactly. A tall scratching post, a climbing tower, something like that would be great for them. They'll use it.
And toys, since they're active in love interaction.
You need a variety, yeah. But the material specifically highlights toys that let you play with them.
Ah, so it's about the interaction.
That's what they crave during playtime. It's bonding time for them.
Gotcha. We also saw that some Bombays can actually be trained to walk on a leash.
Yeah, which is pretty neat. If you've ever wanted a cat you could take for supervised time outside, or maybe even a gentle walk.
A Bombay might be up for it.
Potentially, yeah. It's an option with this breed.
Okay, let's shift to care. Good news here, right? That short, sleek coat. Sounds pretty easy.
It is, thankfully. Pretty low maintenance. It mostly takes care of itself.
So not tons of brushing.
Well, they do shed, like all cats. You might notice it a bit more seasonally, but usually a weekly brush is plenty to manage the hair and keep that lovely shine.
Okay, manageable. But here's something specific we need to flag. Dental care.
Ah, yes, that came up.
The material points out Bombays can be prone to gingivitis. So brushing their teeth a couple of times a week is actually recommended.
Which, let's be honest, isn't always easy with a cat.
True. So if brushing isn't happening, the advice is to at least provide regular tartar fighting treats. That's a good alternative.
Definitely better than nothing. And yeah, they might need a proper dental check or cleaning from the bed at some point. It's something to keep an eye on.
Right, and beyond that, it's just the standard stuff, yeah. Regular nail trims, maybe every couple of weeks.
And of course, keeping that litter box clean. Always key.
Always key.
Yeah.
Okay, health. What's the overall picture look like?
Generally pretty positive, actually, which is great. Because of their Burmese genetics, they're considered a relatively hardy breed. No major, widespread genetic health problems noted across the board in the sources.
Yep.
That's definitely reassuring.
It really is. But there were a couple of potential things flagged by the experts, right?
There were. One was sinus problems. Seems they might be a bit more prone to nasal issues.
Like what?
Like general sinus congestion, maybe even asthma. The material suggested it could be linked to allergies or possibly poor drainage pathways, maybe because of their somewhat rounder facial structure.
Ah, okay. Anatomy playing a role.
Possibly. And the other thing mentioned again under health was dental issues, tying back to the care advice.
Right, the gingivitis risk.
Exactly. They might be more susceptible if their dental alignment is a bit compressed. So vigilance there is good.
Okay. Anything else major on the health front?
The other big one raised was weight management. This breed can apparently gain weight pretty easily.
The get a bit chonky warning.
That's the one, especially as they get older, if their food isn't monitored carefully.
So free feeding is probably a bad idea.
Generally, yes. The expert advice strongly recommended meal-style feeding, usually twice a day, and only leave the food down for 15 or 20 minutes.
Okay, portion control.
Exactly. It's key for managing their weight, and it's especially helpful if you have more than one pet, so you know who's eating what.
Makes sense. And there was a really crucial point about spayed or neutered cats, wasn't there?
Yes, this is super important. The material explains that when you remove those hormones, it actually changes how their bodies metabolize food.
Okay.
So the calorie needs for a spayed or neutered cat often need to be reduced, sometimes by around 30% compared to the feeding guidelines you see on food bags.
30%, that's a lot.
It is. But those bag guidelines are usually for intact animals. Sticking to them after spaying or neutering is a common way pets gain weight. So adjusting intake down is vital.
Good tip, very practical. So, lifespan, what can you expect?
The average is typically given as 9 to 15 years.
But
Because they are known for being quite hardy, it's apparently not unusual for well-cared-for Bombays to live much longer, even up to 20 years.
wow, 20 years. That's potentially a very long commitment.
It really is a long companionship. Now, should we touch on their history, how they came about?
Yeah, let's do that, because the story is quite specific, isn't it?
It really is. Very intentional.
The material tells us the Bombay breed was basically the idea, the vision of one person, Nicky Horner. a breeder in Louisville, Kentucky.
Right. And her goal was super precise. She didn't just want a black cat. She deliberately set out to create a domestic breed that looked like the Indian black leopard.
That specific wild look.
Exactly. But in a domestic cat package.
So how does she do it?
Her method was crossing Burmese cats with black American Shorthairs. She wanted to combine the muscular, solid build of the Burmese with the deep, jet black coat of the American Shorthair, and she specifically looked for cats with those rich golden eye colors to complete the look.
So selecting very carefully.
Very, and she finally cracked it. The material says that in 1965, she produced a litter that consistently had those traits. She wanted the solid black fur, the golden eyes.
And that was the foundation.
That became the foundation stock for the breed, yeah.
And the name Bombay, was that also intentional?
Absolutely. Chosen specifically to connect the breed back to that original inspiration, evoking the image of black panthers found near Bombay, India.
It all ties together.
It does. And while Burmese and American Shorthairs are still sometimes used as outcrossing partners, to keep the gene pool healthy,
Right.
the Bombay is recognized as its own distinct breed now. It got recognition from the Cat Fanciers Association, the CFA in 1970, and TICA in 1979.
So quite established now.
Definitely.
Okay, so there you have it. Our deep dive into the Bombay Cat. That absolutely stunning mini panther lookalike that, kind of paradoxically, turns out to be incredibly dependent on human company. Wants to be your shadow.
Yeah, it's quite the combination. So if you're someone who's looking for a really interactive, very affectionate, and visually striking cat.
A cat who genuinely wants to be part of everything you do.
Mm.
Well, understanding these specific traits we pulled from the material is absolutely key. It helps you know if a Bombay might actually be the perfect fit for your life.
Totally. And as we wrap up, here's maybe a little thought to leave you with based on everything we've just discussed.
Okay.
This breed was quite literally engineered by humans to look like a wild, powerful creature.
Right.
That was the goal.
Yeah, the mini panther.
But its defining personality trait ended up being this profound need for human closeness and domestic life. So what is that specific contrast, designing for a wild look, but really valuing this domestic need? What does that tell us about our own desires? What we're really looking for when we choose our animal companions?
That's interesting. Designing for looks, but connecting through need.
Yeah. Something to maybe just ponder as you go about your day.